Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniXTCG for another Gundam Card Game video. First and foremost, I want to give you guys a special thank you for sticking with me and being patient while I was in Texas for the Dragon Ball Super Fusion World Nationals. If you guys want to see about my tournament run and my deck list, just wait for later today. It will be on the channel. I'm double uploading today, triple uploading today actually. But that being said, we want to talk today about the state of the game going into our LCQs and Nationals, which will be the first and only official premier times for to use GDO3 after its release, and kind of some of the outcry / praise that I've been hearing in the community forums as well as Discord and whatnot. General end of year check-in with the game. So we're gonna get into some heavy discussion and some kind of appraisal of the format and the game and the mechanics and what we actually need to see coming out of GDO3 to make this game healthy moving forward. So I want to thank you guys. Make sure you like the video if you like the video, subscribe if you want to never miss a beat of my Gundam Card Game content, and yeah, if you want to join the membership, 99 cents a month, little for you, all adds up for me, helps the brand succeed and float and attain its goals. Last thing I do want to ask you though is over here, should I move the double O shelf, because you can see kind of like the double O quant foot through the reflection, should I move that down to here so you guys can see all that? I'm going to build the other Gundam Meisters here very soon, and so I think it'd be more aesthetic if I just move the card games up and I move the double O shelf down. Just let me know in the comments. All right, let's hop into the video. So yeah, let's dive into this. I do want to let you guys know that, again, I'm thankful for all your support. I did have a channel update on where we're going to close out 2025 and where we're going to burst into 2026. It'll be in the description in the pinned comment. Go check that out. It's got some big announcements for me personally and where I'm going with this channel. But I think when it comes to the elephant in the room, when it comes to the Gundam Card Game, it's interesting that we are having such a big event, that being Nationals and then Worlds, with very little cards in the game. Now Worlds is happening, it says autumn 2026, so there is time for like 1 to 2 more sets. But Nationals and the LCQ right before Nationals will be held with just 3 sets in the game. Most of the regionals in this format have been held with just 2, and that's going to be a huge thing considering that when you go back in time, look at Fusion World Nationals, right? Fusion World's first Nationals was right after the release of Set 4. Set 4 is where we were when we were getting into this. So you have, if each set is around 250 cards, you really do get in there and you have about, actually, yeah, you have about like close to 1,000 cards in rotation at this point. That's huge, right? But then what you have here is you go back a little further to One Piece, right? And with One Piece, you are really rocking with with One Piece, you're rocking with 5 sets. OP05 was legal when we had this, and that's going to be really cool, the fact that we had 5 sets going in. You want to go a little further back than that? I don't know the exact number for Digimon, but I can tell you Dragon Ball Super Masters, just Dragon Ball Super Card Game at the time, had about 6 sets. I think we were going into Nationals in set 6. Either that or set 5. I think it was set 5, Wish for Shenron. So not Wish for Shenron, that's the, you know what, look, it's a Shenron set, it introduced Shenron, but we have 5 sets for Dragon Ball Masters, 5 sets for One Piece, 4 sets for Fusion World, probably around the same for Digimon, because I remember set 4 coming out and there weren't Nationals around that time. So all of that, but coming into Gundam, we actively have, like, going into this, we are going into our LCQs a month after GDO3 drops, which means every last one of our regionals, and when I say every last, that's going to be exaggerated, every last one of our regionals has happened with like sub 500 cards in the game. Most other games have had close to 1,000 at that point. I'm looking at the database right now and it says 753 cards found. However, alt arts are included in this. So when you take out all of the premium cards, right? Because I can't take out alt arts. But what I can do is just take out all of the premium cards. That takes off 40 cards right there. And then you know how many alt arts exist in each set. Not to mention every starter deck card is doubled because it can come in alternative cards as well as its normal, just non-foil. So realistically, we are entering this set with less than 500 cards, which has led to us using a very condensed strategy, because we don't have many selections to choose from, and it has polarized our game into blockers that basically you have this inevitability of just holding the line with blockers until you get to some of the most powerful cards in the game, whether that be Wing Zero, whether that be Epion, whether that be like burn cards like the Cubile or the Sinanju. But that's one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is hyper aggression, which is going to be 1 Year War, which is going to be Iron-Blooded Orphan blue tech decks, and those decks really revolve around you getting in damage around blockers, burning blockers, pinging blockers, you know, with the purple cards, and then just straight up resting the blockers with Amuro, because he is that dude on God. And like, it really has polarized in between those. You have aggro on one side, you have stall until you hit your top end on the other, and the only guy that loses out are the mid-range decks. There is so much about this game that cannot be played effectively because of how these polarizations of this format has happened, because we are playing with a set that has 500 or less cards legal. Now, this isn't to say that other decks can't win. Other decks can win, but the issue about this is you have to look at it at a law of averages. We all like our techs. You know me, I put out so many deck lists that aren't just down the beaten path. But when you look at it, the highest consistencies go to the decks that can just line up blockers and wait until they get to their end game, which are the strongest cards in the game, and the decks that are going to pretty much go pretty consistently on wide on bodies, but if they high roll, not a single deck in the game can really come out of that. And that is 1 Year War. If 1 Year War high rolls, if they see 2 shards and an Amuro plus bodies consistently every turn, most decks are just getting smoked by that. So what we are currently looking at is to operate in the middle. You have to have a valid strategy, but generally there is a fair amount of luck, more luck than it took in the first place for these other decks to get through. Yes, the other decks involve luck as well, matchup roulette as well, but to play a mid-range deck and pilot it to a top finish, you had to get extremely lucky because the consistency is just better on those other ones. The high roll is just better on those other ones. So this has pretty much led to a weird stance of a lot of people when they want to enjoy the game. They want to play their cards they want to play. They want to play the archetypes, the pilots, the series that they like. And when you were condensed to either playing blockers plus or playing 1 Year War, or maybe in sometimes IBO and, you know, blue, but I don't think people have a problem playing that because IBO is just a fan favorite. This has led to some people saying the game is stale. This has led to locals drying up because they're tired of seeing Wing and 1 Year War every single round. And I think that that's extremely unhealthy to the game. Do I think this is going to stop the game? No. This game has a whole bunch of collectors, a whole bunch of fan favorites of the IP of Gundam, a whole bunch of casuals, as well as competitive or semi-competitive players. The game is not going anywhere, I assure you. But what is going to happen is that a lot of people are starting to go back to their One Piece, starting to even go back to their Fusion World, starting to leave for Riftbound, and that's only because the game feels a little stale right now. It hasn't had the time to blossom, and Set 2 dropping with what I believe is a major change in design from generic interaction to archetypal interaction has really hurt the game in terms of Set 2 coming out and feeling like a revamp on the Set 1 meta, which was extended because we had almost 7 months of beta format. And after having 7 months of beta format, we got the Set 1 format, which essentially, if you really look at it, was beta format 2.0. Wing was already, like, blocker decks were already strong. It just changed to blocker decks becoming better with the inclusion of Wing Zero and whatnot. So you switch from blue-white blockers fully to more white-green blockers or green-white blockers. And then 1 Year War, aggro was not quite a thing back then, but Zaku Rush kind of was in the beta format. And now we are over at a point where you can play 1 Year War aggro to maximum efficiency. Set 2 introduced a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of stuff that needed more setup, more precise draws, and a game that doesn't have a lot of draw and search, as well as hoops that we have to jump through. And that pretty much has it sitting at a point where why would you play Clan when you could just play, like, just generic purple blue and you still get the interactions but you don't have to draw in sequence? Why play necessarily like any other late game deck? Like Gundam X might be a potential late game deck, but does it have the punch and power that green white does. No, just play green white. So set 2 was kind of a fumble in terms of what it introduced to the game, and some of the picks only strengthened decks that were already here. So we are looking at a lot of weight being put on GDO3. But the main issue is that GDO3 does not affect the competitive scene for 99% of the players, because going to Las Vegas has an entry cost of its own to play in an LCQ in hopes of getting into Nats. And when you look at the events that we've had, let's look at the offline championships, right? The offline regionals have had one at Card Fest at September 20th through 21st. We had another one on October 5th for Core TCG, and we had one more for Carta Magica in Canada in October 18th. Then we had Versus Games, which is the one that just went by in Orlando on December 6th. Those are the regionals we have had. That is 4 regionals before the games have been able to go to Nats. And what that means is that top 16 has received the national invite. For you guys that aren't paying attention, that is literally 64 people. 64 people have gotten an invitation to nationals. That is insane. If for you guys that just don't know, One Piece is huge. One Piece will get over, like One Piece will have 1,000 people in their nationals or something like that. Like it's going to be absolutely huge. But for games that are considered less popular in Bondi's card game sphere, such as Masters or Fusion World, Masters had 216 players. Fusion World had 197 players for the nationals. And you're telling me that Gundam, before LCQs, the maximum people that can come into Gundam nationals will be 64. That is crazy to me. That is extremely crazy to me. And what you're looking at right now is the fact that you have a nationals that needs an LCQ, not because they just want to pad the numbers, but because they need to pad the numbers. When you go to Card Fest, right, you're going to see now that we have, I'm trying to see where the LCQ period is, but we have the last chance qualifiers. And the last chance qualifiers are going to be held at the Las Vegas Toy and Hobby Expo, you know what I mean? And that's going to be cool, right? But I'm looking at this and it still looks like going on to here. You said regional participation, top 64. I actually don't see where the invites are, but this might just be because this is let's see, this is just the nationals. I was trying to find where the intro or where the LCQs was, but they might not have a strict price sheet. Tell me if I'm wrong. But this is going to be a sub 100, because not everybody that got an invite is going to travel to Las Vegas. It's just not going to happen unless they immediately sold their Hideyui and decided, you know, this has to happen. But a lot of people, like, you might only get 60, 58 from the 64 people that got their invites. You never know. But this is going to be a very, very low threshold. And I personally, now this is just me, I personally think that we could have had a full year of playing before we had nationals. I think that having nationals when the game has barely been out for 5 months is very, well, 6 months, half a year, just over half a year. That's not very long. That's not very long at all. That's 3 sets, and like I said, the 3rd set doesn't come into play for anybody not playing in the LCQs. And so that's just, I don't think it's long enough. But what we now have is a weird format where a lot of people felt like the competitive scene got stale 2 sets in, and a lot of people felt like they weren't able to get a chance to compete to play in nationals, and that's not a good look. Now granted, guys, I think that a lot of this gets fixed by set 2 or set 3. I think a lot of this is going to be good because next year we will have 3-4 sets to duke it out before we actually get to the next nationals. And so I am going to just put it out here and be cool about this and say that we are looking forward to an excellent 2026 for the Gundam card game. We just looked at kind of a little bit of a stumble for the 2025 thing. But that being said, looking at set 3, we haven't gotten the full spice. We are still missing LRs. We are still missing quite a few cards. But here's what I think we need to see coming from GDO3 to really prosper moving forward. video's getting a little long, so I'm gonna keep this yap session as short as possible. Just letting you guys know, like the video so it thrives, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support me even further, join the 99-cent membership a month. It does just help me immensely, and it's a little bit for you, but it all adds up to me. We'll have membership exclusive, just content coming back to the channel. We will have contests. You guys have seen the post about the reprinting of STO5 and beyond, and I'm gonna make sure that I go to my LGSs and see if I can pick up any STO5, because I would like the next giveaway to be 3 STO5 starters. And for you guys that won these, I'll be getting back to you guys today in email, and I'll be shipping them out this week, so just hang tight. Just got back in the state, but thank you guys for all your support. I appreciate it. And if you want to support me outside on other platforms, you can always follow my Twitch, you can follow my Twitter, make sure those get over 1,000 followers so I can have more sponsorship options. And you can also go over and check out some videos on my second channel, Universe X Media, where I go over all these games and anime and manga, just basically anything nerdy that I can't do on this channel. So thank you guys, and let's get back to the video. So looking at GDO3, like I said, we are still missing some LRs. Like we see on the cover, there is a Gundam Exia Trans Am, and I know everybody wants to know what that does. But what we need, I feel like, in this game right now, we need more payoffs to this archetype play. If you are going to try to transition us over from general card quality to archetypal play, we need more payoffs for archetypal play. And this isn't saying that we don't need both. I truly believe that we need a good balance between generic deck and archetypal play that makes you want to switch between them, that makes both of them viable in the format, but better or worse for their own reasons. But I do think we are far past the time of letting literally white blockers into just wing Gundam, or playing bodies out every single turn with high maneuver on one pilot and resting a blocker on the other be the most dominant deck types. We need a reason to say all of my deck is going to be double O, or all of my deck is going to be clan battle. We need reasons for it. So I'm hoping that Trans Am slaps. We did, I believe, get to see, let me scroll down because I do believe this came out. We got the O, we got G-Fred, so we're starting to see the top ends of some of these decks, and I will be going over that in a future video because I've been a little behind on the spoilers. Don't at me. And it really is kind of cool to have this in the game, but I just think that we need to make sure those payoffs are good. I think another thing that we need are better comeback mechanics, and I see some of that in a card like C Gundam. And thank you guys for correcting me on that, because it is a Greek alphabet, and I believe it is pronounced Kasi. But C Gundam is definitely a comeback mechanic, in the sense that the worse you are in terms of comeback potential, the easier it is to play. It comes down and immediately impacts the board by dealing ping damage, and I think that's cool. But currently in this game, as of set 2, we are still 2 sets in, and we haven't gotten any more real comeback mechanics outside of set 1. The best comeback mechanics in the game are still Wing Zero and sequential Wing Zeros afterwards, and Merida and Banshee being able to first strike 2 guys down into the dirt. So I think that realistically right now we are sitting at a point where lots of decks, once you lose momentum, it's a downhill battle until you get snuffed out finally. And I think that this game desperately needs more comeback potential so that other decks can thrive. Other decks can not only thrive, but not just be like, oh, my opening hand was bad post mulligan, my opponent drew great, or they drew broken, and I'm just getting beat down for the rest of the game. We need more mechanics that can reverse the polarity, and they need to be careful about them, because cards like Banshee Merida and Wing Zero are not only great on the comeback, but they are oppressive when you're ahead. And we need more effects that are kind of like, dare I say, like the LR from the Hathaway starter deck. We need more effects that are like Kasi Gundam, where you are able to play them neutrally if you guys are in like a neutral position, but also play them for very cheap when you're behind. Cards that are better when you're behind, but decent when you are on the play, and probably not as great when you are ahead. That means that you can't just max out on them. You have to put them in your deck at a good number to have them as a plan, but not as your forward plan. The game just needs more balance, and we have a lot to see, well, still a fair amount to see in set 3, and we know nothing about set 4. So I think that with the way the game is going, with what they're showing us in set 3 so far, I think they are supporting their archetypes, and they're really trying to make it so that the game isn't just generic .deck, put all these guys in, just let the interactions kind of fill themselves. They are trying to railroad a little bit, but like I said, I think as long as we have a balance between generic .deck and archetypal play, we should be in a good spot. But what I am hearing a lot is that a lot of locals are starting to dry up. They're really getting down to their core members, and this is a problem with how the format goes. So I'm crossing my fingers that GDO3 will fix this, and we've got a bit of time to wait. We've got 2 months. GDO3 comes out on the 16th. The starter decks come out a little before then, and we do have a little time to wait. And I do think that is going to weigh heavy on people. Like when you look at the products, right? I'm opening them up right now. When you look at the products, we've got Celestial Drive starter deck coming out on January 16th, along with the Flash of Radiance coming out on January 16th. So 2 starter decks that's coming out, and then we have Steel Requiem coming out on January 30th. So I apologize, because that means that Nationals, the LCQs and Nats have 2 weeks to master this format once the set is actually out. And then we get these new starter decks into the game about a month before then. So that's definitely going to be a bit funky, and that means that we actually have like closer to almost 2 months before we can really get a shakeup on the format. And guys, I just say hang tight. If you love this game but you've been frustrated with the format, I know personally my locals, unless we're in a new type challenge, we aren't really seeing a gajillion of these wing decks or 1 year war there. People want to play different things. People want to get spicy. But when we do get the prizes that, you know, people actually have to try for, it does default back to the standard kind of mush stale meta that we were seeing. And we can see that other decks can top too. Just this weekend, we've been seeing some red-blue, some very unconventional red-blue, mind you. If you want me to go over those deck lists, let me know in the comments. But we have been seeing innovations for text. It's just that, as most of you guys know, these games can get very close. These games can be decided by top deck wars. And when you play off meta, you really have to get a little bit lucky. There has to be some point where a deck that could have cooked you, that's either blockers or 1 year war, just proceeded to break around. But you did play some risk not playing the most consistent decks. And hey, I'm all here for that, because no guts, no glory. You want to top with something different, you got to play something different. You know what I mean? That's as simple as that. It sounds simple, but it is simple. And I think that there is a lot of room for this game to grow. I think that this game may have fumbled in set 2, but I think that it has bones to be one of the best games I've played. It just needs more interaction, it needs more card draw, it needs more search, it needs more consistency, and it needs to not feel like bursts are as detrimental to the game as possible. Just trying to progress your game state and giving your opponent the pilot they needed to kill you sucks. Trying to progress your game state or trying to go in for a surefire kill while your opponent's behind and them getting a blocker out of their life or their shields, that sucks. Bases out of their shields, that kind of sucks. And I think that we are in a space where the triggers are a little too strong, and we need the game to get stronger to compensate for those triggers. A trigger should not shut down your entire turn or take off a game push that was set up 2 turns ago. They should be helpful, they shouldn't be game breaking, and right now triggers can be game breaking. And so yeah, overall, that's my end of yapping. I think that this game in year 1, it did kind of hurt from getting started off in January. Most of us know we had 7 months of beta format, and if this game had been able to get off the ground in March or May, that would have given us enough time to have 3 sets later in that would have had us given us enough time to maybe have like May starts in May, 3 months later in August we get set 2, 3 months later in September, sorry not September, 3 months later in November we get set 3, and we would have felt a lot better, I think, by then. And there are all sorts of things that I don't know, that none of us can know, why they had the 7-month gap. But realistically, I think starting off in July hurt this game the most, because we had set 1, set 2, and so little regional events that not only did people feel like they couldn't get into them, but they also felt like, even if I got into them, what's the point if it's just going to be 1 year war and Gundam Wing? So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know how you guys feel about this, and let me know what you guys are hoping for going into set 3. I do think that 2026 is going to be fine. We're going to get a set in January. We're going to get a set probably in April. We're going to get a set like every 3 months. They're releasing sets and starter decks. So next year should have a lot more variety, and we shouldn't be stuck in a stale format for long. But yeah, that's pretty much my rant. Make sure you go down in the description and check out my channel announcements again, or see the pinned comment. I want to thank you guys for being patient, and we are about to really get back into the swing of things. And again, thank you for my long yap session. this was a long one, but we'll be getting back to gameplay and deck breakdowns and spoilers very, very soon. Thanks. Bye.